Hi everyone, it's Amy at Listenaholic. I recently got my deep flap reconstruction surgery and I wanted to share my experience in case for the ones who are going through this or will be going through it. My surgery day, I was checked into the hospital at 5 a.m. My surgery, I think, started around 7 or 8 a.m. and I was released to med-surg around 5 p.m. It was a full day of operating, and when I was released I had really extreme nausea and very low blood pressure. My blood pressure is already low, normally around 60/90, and this time around it was around 50/80. So the nurses were very concerned. They kept me in there a little bit longer than usual. I also got medication for the nausea, so that's what kept me there, and I was released over to the ICU area once there was a bed. And once I moved over, I realized, what happened. I felt like a truck hit me. I slept most of my days, hours, and I just remember a flutter of nurses and PCAs coming in and out. They were always checking my vitals, checking the flaps to make sure that they survived. I think in the first 24 hours after surgery, they have to check the flaps every hour. So what they'll do is use this Doppler sort of machine or equipment and press it underneath the flaps to make sure they can hear a good blood flow connection. And they do that because if not, then you have to go immediately into the surgery room and get operated on again. So that's why they have to do that. And after that first 24 hours is passed, then I believe they check every 2 hours or so and kind of get a little more relaxed. So thankfully I had a catheter inside me. I didn't have to get up and use the restroom. So the first, I think, 48 hours, I did not get out of bed. I stayed in that thing. There was a physical therapist that came by the first day after surgery and asked if I wanted to try to get out of bed. And I politely told him to come back another time. Another PT came back the next day, day 2 after surgery, and even though I didn't want to, they kind of forced me. They brought 2 PT people, so I think it was, ganging up on me. No, I'm just joking, but there was this saying in front of the bed, and right across the bed on the wall it said, "Movement is medicine." So I think they do that on purpose at MD Anderson. They want you to move. So I did move. All I did was get from my bed to the chair next to the bed. It took a long time. I don't even know, probably like 30 minutes. It was very painful. I didn't think I could do it. And it was, somehow we did do it, but it took a long time. And I didn't want to get up after that. But funny enough, occupational therapy came by, and the therapist taught me how to bathe myself. This was not done during my mastectomy surgeries, probably because I had one on each side and they release you after one night, so you don't really stay enough to have to get a shower. This time around, since I was there 3 nights, I did have to learn that, I guess. And what they do is they get a small towel and a soap and they just lather that up, get it really sudsy, and you just kind of squeeze it over on top of your incisions and just let the soap drip down, let the water drip down. No abrasive rubbing, just something that kind of lightly goes over the incision areas so that there's no infection, it stays clean. So my husband took really good notes. I'm really thankful for him. There was a bed, what do you call those, the ones in the wall, so he was able to bring it down and sleep with me the 3 nights I was at the hospital. By day 3, I think that's when the anesthesia wore off finally. I had extreme nausea from that. I think it takes a few days for it to get out of your system, especially when you're under for that long. So that plus the tramadol pain medication I was taking, it just was not a good mix. I was throwing up. I didn't have appetite. I also was having really bad hot flashes. It reminded me of chemotherapy. So I didn't enjoy that. But by day 3, I was also feeling better. walking around outside the hallway by pushing the IV pole in front of me. That really helped. And so all of this was just, you know, day by day getting better and better. And so by day 3, I was discharged to go home. They removed 2 out of the 6 drains. I don't know if I mentioned, I had 6 drains initially, 2 on each side of the chest, 1 on each side of the hips. And when I left, I had 4, so that was really nice. I also left with lots of medication. And so week 1, half of it was at the hospital and the other half was at home. I did not sleep on my bed the first week. Obviously, I could not. And so I used the baby glider I used for my 2 children that I've had before. It glides, it reclines, so I have gotten my money's worth out of this thing. I will link the one I used below. It goes with our home aesthetics. There's a charging port, so it's been really nice. I also developed a cough in the hospital, so every time I coughed, it felt like there was a hole in my chest. I later told my plastic surgeon about it, and funny enough, she told me that they had to cut a piece of my rib to access the blood vessels behind the ribs to connect the flaps to, and that's why I was feeling the hole. So every time I coughed, I had to do it very gently, laugh very, you know, daintily. It was like a ho 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 hee 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 situation, and sounds funny now, but at the time, I mean, a sneeze killed me. So I understand what C-section mothers go through now. I have a huge scar down there to prove, so I sympathize with you guys. Also, showering was difficult. My husband, my darling husband, ordered a shower chair ahead of time, and you know, in my mastectomy surgeries, when I was recovering from those, I could stand and shower. I just needed help because I couldn't use one arm. But this time around, I couldn't even stand. I had to sit to take the shower. There was no energy. It took all my effort to stand or sit. So that shower chair was really useful. I also used a lot of products I used during my mastectomy, but I also was not able to use some of the products. So I'm going to show some of that. For my mastectomy recoveries, I was able to use this to hold my drains. It's a mesh holder, but since there was 6 drains initially, we couldn't fit all of them here. So the occupational therapist made this for me. It's made out of the rubber, like exercising bands you use, and she put safety pins in here. She didn't have 6 safety pins, so some of the drains had to share a safety pin, but this was useful. It took a longer time to set up, but I don't know, it was more secure to me, so I liked that. And then during the mastectomy recoveries, I used this to put the drains inside, but as you can see, there's not enough space for 6. So at the hospital, they provided with this type of necklace lanyard. You put it around your neck, and there's Velcro ties where you put each drain through. So there's 4 on each side, so you could have 8. You could even have 16. You could put 2 on each. So you could put quite a number on this lanyard. This was a really good product. I don't even know if you can buy this online, but that was useful. The 2 objects I did use a lot from my mastectomy was this robe. There is a brand that first came out with it. It's a little pricey. This is the knockoff version of that. The reason why it's nice is because there's pockets inside, so you can put your drains inside here. There's 4 pockets total, so I used this quite a bit when I was home recovering. I also used this pillow that I had from the first mastectomy. Not really for myself. It was to put an armor and show my children that mommy was hurt and that we had to kind of distance ourselves. If we wanted to do hugs, they kind of had to hug me with the pillow so that they wouldn't touch any of the incisions. My older one is 4, so now I think she understands. She's seen me go through 2 of those, so she knows not to put too much pressure. She's very gentle. But my younger one, who's 2 now, she was way too young the first time around. She was 1, so she doesn't remember, and also she's very active and rambunctious, so this really protected me from her. So after that, I think first week, I went back for my post-op, and in my post-op, the radiated breast, the coloring of that was very red and purple, looked angry. Whereas the right side, which is the non-radiated side, was recovering well. So they put me on some antibiotics just to make sure it wasn't cellulitis and rule that out. And I also got 3 drains removed, so I left the hospital with 1. So it was great. I had a huge hunch when I walked or sat because my stomach felt really, really tight, and if I straightened myself, it felt like the incision would burst open. So I don't know if that's common, but that's why I was hunched over. I still really had to watch out how I coughed, laughed, or sneezed because it was so tight. And by 2.5 weeks after surgery, I was allowed to remove the last drain. I started to walk with a binder, but not the typical corset waist binders you see people have. Mine was more of a bandage. I had to roll around myself because of my short torso. The normal binders did not fit me. It would go over my chest, which would be painful. So I had to use the bandage type, which I actually preferred because I could control how tight I wanted it and how much support I needed that day. And I could wash it, so I didn't feel bad about that. I was also really, really itchy in my stomach incision. I don't know why, but it started getting really itchy. I also stopped sleeping on the recliner and graduated over to the bed behind me. But I slept with this wedge pillow. And this was what my husband ordered on Amazon. The plastic surgeon had a specific dimension she wanted, a specific incline she wanted me to sleep on, so that's why we got this. I'll link the one that I used below in the description box. So that was really, really helpful. So about week 3, it was about the same as week 2, but around week 4 after surgery, that's when I started sleeping on the bed without the wedge pillow. I could sleep on my sides here and there once in a while, but not too long. I could also stand better, sit better, just a tiny little hunch. I still had the binder on, and most of the glue from the incisions came off. There's some scabs here and there, but most of it has come off. The discoloration on the radiated breast got a lot better. It's still not as good as the non-radiant side, but I think that's just how I'm healing. I don't have any open wounds, but I feel some plastic knobs, so I'm gonna ask my surgeon about that, whether or not those will resolve on their own or if they have to cut it. So we'll see. My next steps will be phase 2 next year. I wanted to do it this year because selfishly I want it within my deductible, but for safety reasons, since they usually wait 3 months after to perform any more surgery, and because I'm not recovering fast on the radiated side, we will be pushing that out for next year. I don't know exactly when, but probably around February is what we're thinking. That is to remove the flaps underneath and kind of stretch the skin down. Also do any maybe cosmetic surgery here and there if needed, some fat grafting perhaps, or revisioning of the scar. It looks really ugly. It's very horrendous. So it's not a pretty sight. I don't like to look at myself in the mirror, not so much, but that's where we're at. I also realized it's been almost 1 year since I ended chemotherapy. November is when I ended it. It's November right now, so it's kind of interesting to reflect back. Physically speaking, from chemo, I have arthritis in my hips now. So before I start my menstrual cycle, I have extreme pain in my hips for about a week. I never had that before. My acne that I developed early this year in April has finally kind of gone under control somewhat this month. My my menstrual cycle was coming too frequently. When I first got it in April, which was 6 months after chemo ended, I was getting that every 3 weeks, every 3.5 weeks. And usually before cancer, I was around 4 to 4.5 weeks. So this was way too frequent. And after surgery, I was late 2.5 weeks. It was about 6.5 weeks since my last menstrual cycle. I don't know if that's my body trying to regulate and get on a normal cadence, so to speak. But thankfully, my acne has kind of gone back down. My hair is also growing quite a bit, but it's also shedding a lot. The hair that's on the top of my head right here is definitely more sparse, and it's not growing as much as I thought it would, or how it was before chemo. My eyebrows are also shredding, so I guess it's just kind of that cycle where everything starts shredding, coming out, and then growing back. So I think I'm going to go through a few cycles of that. Emotionally speaking, this recent deep flap surgery was quite, it was hard on me. Physically speaking, I could not walk very well. Emotionally, it took quite a toll because of that. And I mentioned before, I don't like to look in the mirror. It's pretty scary to see yourself looking like Frankenstein with these huge incisions. You know, I have 1, 2, 3 of them, and the stomach scar is probably the scariest one because it really does look like Frankenstein. I'm hoping that it improves and heals better. But I'm also very thankful that I'm here. I'm making this video. I'm alive. So I am appreciative of all those things. I'm thankful for all my family and friends who have helped us in so many ways. You know, words can't describe how much they've sacrificed to help. It truly takes a village, especially also when you have kids, because that is another added responsibility. And so shout out to my mom and dad, my mother-in-law, my father-in-law. You know, they dropped everything and came to help us with the girls, which I'm very thankful for, and makes me, you know, want to fight harder. I hope that this radiated side recovers better, that phase 2 next year will, you know, run smoothly. It's supposed to be outpatient. I won't be under for very long, maybe 3 hours max. So I'm hopeful that it won't be as intense as this surgery was. I'm thankful that I'm able to spend time with my family. And so also want to thank you guys for following along. This has been about like 1.5 year journey, you know, almost 2 years. I mean, 2021 is when I got diagnosed. It's almost the end of 2022, and I still have another surgery next year, 2023. So breast cancer, you know, people may say that it's the easy cancer to get, but I don't see it that way. It's taking a long time. I've had a lot of setbacks, that's true, which has delayed my process in moving forward, but this journey has been quite a marathon, and I want to thank everyone of following along. Even though it's not a sexy topic, I also want to thank all the nice comments and prayers. It means a lot. So thank you guys, and until next time, bye.